Welcome to Lean to the Left, home of no-holds-barred commentary, plus interviews with fascinating people, some of them top experts, others simply with interesting stories to tell. You'll never know who'll show up at Lean to the Left. Now here's your host, Bob Gaddy.
Hey, today our guest is Terry Livingston. He's the founder of Grand Strand Pride, an LGBTQ plus rights organization located in the coastal area of South Carolina. It's an ultra-conservative state and it's an ultra-conservative area. Terry and his team are fighting to protect the rights of those in the LGBTQ plus community, and they constantly face challenges from the Republican-controlled state legislature, having to beat back harmful proposals that threaten basic freedoms that we all have a right to enjoy. Terry's a Myrtle Beach CPA, and he's the husband of another local CPA, a guy named Steve. Terry, thanks for joining us on the Lean to the Left podcast. I really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
All right, Bob, as you said, I'm a CPA. I work with my husband, Steve. It's just the two of us in our practice. We're primarily income tax preparation at this point of our career. Only a few more years to retirement, so that's a close goal for us. And you know, when we're not busy doing income tax returns, we do have an organization that we're co-founders of, which is Grand Strand Pride, and we are the advocacy voice of the local LGBTQ community. Yeah. And of course, you know, things have been rocking and rolling reasonably well until we get to this year, and there's kind of been a lot to talk about. So
yeah, you've had a busy year. Crack me up. You have in this local area that we are, Myrtle Beach, which is in a county called Horry, Horry, and the Horry County Council passed a resolution at the request of Grand Strand Pride to recognize what was it, May as Pride Month, right?
June is Pride Month.
June was Pride Month. Sorry, and so you know everything was cool. Everybody was happy. There was going to be a celebration and everything. And then all of a sudden the right-wing nutcases in this area started calling up to the council members and saying, what the hell did you do that for? And they rescinded the thing.
Yeah, and that was a total surprise because, you know, last year for the first time, we asked the city of Myrtle Beach to do it, which they gladly did the proclamation. They renewed it again this year, and we said, you know, I don't know, in Myrtle Beach area, you know, people always say, well, where do all the gay people live? Where's, you know, that we don't have, you know, a section of town that we all live in.
Oh,
we're
really?
all over the county.
I thought you were all in like a little conclaves.
So, you know, for that reason, though, that's why we asked the county to do the Pride Month proclamation, because people are all over the county. I mean, yeah, it was a surprise that, you know, they passed it one meeting, and then the very next meeting, they very, very quietly rescinded it. They only referred to it by the resolution number, and nobody. Right? That's right. So nobody caught it that day. It was people reviewing and trying to figure out, watching the tape of the meeting. The next day, a reporter actually caught it and brought it to my attention. So,
oh, really? You didn't even, oh, man.
So they didn't even tell us what they did.
Oh, man, that's something.
So that's when we all organized for the very next meeting, when they had to approve the minutes of those meetings.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of times when there's opposition showing up for a meeting, there's a tendency sometimes for that meeting to suddenly get canceled at the last minute. And that way they don't have to hear your concerns. And so to prepare for that, we kind of double teamed them. We had a press conference and demonstration outside the meeting. And we also had speakers lined up. Should the meeting go through, they
Right.
were speaking inside. So we probably had a couple of hundred people outside. We filled up chamber inside, even had overflow room going that night.
You're you're dangerous, man. You are dangerous.
So one of the reporters told me, said, this is the largest group ever to show up for
Okay.
a county council meeting, but
For sure.
all good comments, both outside at the press conference outside, inside during public comment. They had absolutely nothing to say after all those comments. They just like, okay, public comments over, going on with the meeting.
How was that?
And so needless to say, we're not very happy with county council right now.
Yeah, but the thing was that all happened in the middle of an election campaign for county council, right?
It was primary
Right.
elections or runoffs. I forget which it was, were the very next week. So yes.
Yeah, and it was the chair, right? The chair.
The chair and I don't know, 2 or 3 had, but they were all on the Republican Party. So,
Well, yeah, I mean,
because there were no, county is a partisan election here,
right.
and so part of it, I'm sure, had to do with election politics. But to me, they just missed an opportunity to say that, when they do these recognitions of a group, it's, as I like to tell people, it's the equivalent of a Hallmark greeting card. It's kind of meant for the recipients. If it doesn't apply to you, I'm still waiting on my FOIA request to find out exactly who complained to them.
Right.
They haven't finished complying with that yet, but it wasn't many. But they should have just said, it doesn't apply to you, ignore it and move on.
Yeah, right.
They
Exactly.
rescinded it and made them look stupid across the entire country because national media picked it up.
I know. It was in the Washington Post. That was cool. Yeah, but isn't it kind of typical of what goes on in some of these conservative areas, probably around the country, I would think, right?
And of course, I don't know, but Horry County may be a little bit worse or more divided, if you will, because you get east of the waterway, and people are a little more forward thinking or whatnot. And
Right.
as you go to the other side, the western side of the county, and it is extremely conservative.
Oh yeah, yeah.
As a rule here, and of course we are, by land, I believe we're the largest county in the state. So we've got a wide range of viewpoints, shall we say?
Yeah. So what's it like advocating for the LGBTQ community in an area like this? I mean, must be a real challenge, right?
I guess after saying what I just said, I like staying near the coast and not having to, when you have to go to Conway and deal with the county, it's a whole different scenario there.
Right. Yeah. So you're located in the Myrtle Beach area, which of course is on the coast, and that is the area that Terry's talking about. That's a little bit more progressive than the area to the west, which is where we find the more rural area and of South Carolina, and the further away you get, the more conservative it gets. I think the more Republican it gets. Always cracks me up. This is just an aside, but it always cracks me up that we see in front of homes that obviously the people, are not very well off. You can just tell by the clunkers sitting in front of the house and whatnot, not very well off. But they have Trump flags out, or they have, I mean, it seems like people are voting against their own best interests here a lot.
And I think the same thing when riding through rural areas.
Sure.
It's like, I want to say that man has no clue what
Yeah.
your life is like and,
Yeah.
how to even begin to help you.
And no desire to anyway.
Correct.
Even if he had a clue, he doesn't care. It's the last thing he cares about. Right now, he needs to care about whether he's going to jail or not. But that's for another topic, Terry. I want to talk about the Respect for Marriage Act. The fact that it's passed the House, had, what was it, 44 Republican members of the House that voted for it.
But being a bipartisan bill, it should have had even more. So
it should have, it should have. But now it's sitting in the Senate, and I'm looking at news reports that are saying that the Republican senators are just dodging. Well, I haven't read it yet. The thing's only 4 pages long. They're claiming they haven't read it, so they can't comment. Blah 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is that they got to have enough Republican votes to beat back a filibuster, assuming all Democrats support it. So what are your thoughts about that?
Beginning to wonder, one, is it going to come up for a vote? And two, will we get, I think we need at least 10 Republicans to vote for it.
Yeah.
And another concerning factor is that, the Senate's never passed the Equality Act.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very simple bill to pass. That act, in case you're not familiar with it, would grant LGBTQ people nationwide protection from discrimination in housing, credit, and public accommodations.
Okay.
That's a no-brainer to pass.
It should be, yeah.
And they've been, this one report, I was doing a little bit of research on different things, and someone said that it's been trying to get passed in some shape or form for 48 years. And here it is, the House keeps passing it and the Senate does nothing for, at least the last several years. And that's the easy one to pass for the LGBTQ community. The Respect for Marriage Act it's not doing anything new. It's just codifying practices that are being done right now.
Mhm.
And, I've looked into it. For me, it's a good start. It's not everything that we need, but it's a good start. And I don't see why there's a holdup in getting more people to join onto it.
Wasn't it made necessary maybe by the Roe v. Wade decision and comments by Clarence Thomas?
I would say that's what's brought it to the surface here, because like I said, all it's doing is it's codifying what it's in practice now.
Sure.
Should a court, as we've learned, decide that they want to change their mind,
Yeah.
you go back to what's written in law, and the information here isn't written into law. So yes, I guess the Roe v. Wade being overturned, we've learned that the Supreme Court can change its mind. It's not final. I think we always grow up thinking that a Supreme Court decision is final because it's the last one, but that same case can come up through the ranks again.
Yeah, it can. And this Justice Thomas seems to be threatening same-sex marriage, the right to contraception, a whole bunch of things that aren't specifically stated and protected in the Constitution.
correct. Or through other forms of legislation.
Yeah, yeah.
And I question whether, to me, Thomas should have been given an opinion on the case that was on the docket that day,
Yeah.
and not bringing up other cases. But that's been said and done. But yeah, and to be honest, I guess I wasn't expecting the federal government to come up with a marriage act so quickly as the House did. But that was a nice surprise. Like I said, when I kind of started studying what it does, it falls short of what we need, but it may be all that can be done on the federal level.
How does it fall short of what's needed?
And here's what I would think would Republicans wouldn't like, but it's not in the bill, is that it doesn't give us any state protections.
Okay.
So to me, it doesn't codify the Obergefell decision, but it does pretty much codify what happened after the Windsor decision, which Windsor brought marriage equality to a federal level,
Okay.
and Obergefell brought it to all 50 states.
Okay.
If the Respect for Marriage Act passes, I hope it makes it stronger that the Supreme Court couldn't overturn Obergefell, but, still, as Justice Thomas stated, he wants to see that brought up again. If it's overturned in a couple, 3 years, and even with the Respect for Marriage Act, South Carolina goes back to there are no more same-sex marriages. I would imagine they would go as far as saying, for state purposes, I'm no longer married.
Right.
So that's where I say the Respect for Marriage Act falls short, but yet that should be where it falls short, should help get the Republicans on board that we're only talking about federal benefits. We're not talking about, forcing the states to do something that's been traditionally, that's a state right. We're not stomping on state rights. So, what's the holdback in getting more votes in the Senate on the Respect for Marriage Act?
Yeah. Well, a lot of Democrats have been saying that freedom is on the ballot in November. Joe Cunningham, who is running for governor of South Carolina, Democratic candidate running for governor of South Carolina, is making that a key part of his platform. And as you talk, Terry, it sounds to me like they are absolutely correct. And it's not just the freedoms that you have a right to have, but it's other kinds of freedoms too. I mean, look what they did with respect to Roe v. Wade and the woman's right to control her own body, and on and on. Do you share that view? Do you think it's that big of an issue that freedom is on the ballot?
I would say so, because yeah, and I think the Republicans are seeing a whole lot more pushback after that Supreme Court decision came down than they expected. But where were the poll numbers on people for pro-choice? Weren't they in the high 60s?
I just saw a piece online before we spoke that said that it was 60-40. I think it was 60-40 people favoring same-sex marriage. Is that right?
All right. The latest that I'm seeing as far as same-sex marriage is at 71%. So
71%?
For which, to me, right now as a country, if we're just talking about marriage equality or whatnot, I think the country's at a point that marriage is marriage, which
Yeah,
is the way it should be. We're not talking about gay marriage. We're not talking about straight marriage, but marriage is marriage.
right.
But when it comes down to voting and, the laws, it's, even though the majority supports it, and we're not just talking about the minority LGBTQ community, we're talking about 71% of the country.
Mhm.
That's what the poll last month stated. Want to see marriage equality because everybody at this point is somehow someone close to practically everybody now has someone in a same-sex relationship or marriage or whatnot, and I don't think they want to see that fall, but yet here we are in 2022 and we're fighting to keep marriage equality.
Well, one of the things that kind of gets me is that when people go to the polls to vote, though, even though they may feel that way about same-sex marriage, even though they may feel that way about the women's right to choose what happens to her own body, even though they may feel that way about any other issue of equality, like the right to send kids to school without them having to hide under desks and be afraid, or the right to go to a club and not be afraid of getting shot up.
Right.
Those things, to me, that's part of the freedoms that we should have in this country and that we just expect. And yet, when people go to the polls, they're not going to be thinking about those. They're going to be thinking about how much did they pay for gas, and this whole issue about inflation and the economy, and they're going to lay that at the feet of Joe Biden and the Democrats, which I think is absolutely, totally unfair.
Along those lines, have you seen the news story on the internet? And I forgot the guy's name, but he's a Republican representative in the House. He voted against the Respect for Marriage Act. And then 3 days later, he's at his son's same-sex marriage.
I saw that
ceremony.
I saw that.
I mean, how do you get up and celebrate your son's wedding, and yet you voted not to give him federal rights?
How do you spell hypocritical?
Does it have silent letters in it?
I would say it might be GOP. Oh man, yeah, I saw that. I was amazed at that. Oh man.
But and I think that's the problem. We all know people that they'll gladly come. I want to be on your party list. I love you and Steve. We support y'all and whatnot, but yet you vote away my rights in the ballot box. So it's something we get used to for sure in South Carolina.
Yes, for sure. I wanted to ask you about something else, and that's monkeypox. Is that something that is of special concern to you guys?
So here's the thing, and I guess I'm learning about it because CDC and South Carolina DHEC are very much trying to get word out to the LGBTQ community about it, that all their data indicates that we're going to see a rapid increase in it.
Uh-huh.
It is transmitted by primarily skin-to-skin contact.
Okay.
But that said, if someone actually has the monkeypox or whatnot, that's on their clothing. It kind of reminds me of early COVID. They thought that COVID would stick to surfaces for a while, but we later learned that it died. I think they know a little more about monkeypox because it's kind of in the smallpox, that we're used to or whatnot in the past. But anyway, it can linger on clothing and whatnot. So, but it's not necessarily the rumor or whatnot they're wanting to get off that people are saying, well, it's only affects the gay community. That's not true. From what the doctor from the CDC, he and I've actually spoken about it, but they're wanting to get word out because it's summertime. In the fall, especially with South Carolina, they're worried about there's a lot of pride celebrations going on once the weather gets a little bit cooler. Okay. You're going to have people out clubbing late at night. They're it's summertime, it's hot. They're wearing either tank tops or they're on the dance floor shirtless and it's crowded. I think that's the thing they're worried about, or these big parties and things like that. But you need to be careful that if you're a sexually active person, you need to be aware who you're with, because they are expecting a big outbreak. And here's the thing about what people are like, well, let's get vaccinated. Yeah. The last number I was given, and this was, I think it was last week. So it's 7 days old, what I'm telling you, but the allocation of vaccines to the state of South Carolina is 1,000 doses for the whole state. For the whole state. And it takes 2 doses per person.
Oh my, so 500 people can get vaccinated.
Correct. That's our allocation. Now, granted, we don't have many cases, but you can't rely on a vaccine. If you want to keep yourself safe from it, and from what I hear, you're not going, I don't think you're going to die from it, but you're going to be miserable for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's got these lesions that you get on I've seen these pictures, they're nasty.
So your only protection practically is you've got to be careful. Yeah. You can't rely on, I'm one of the lucky 500 that can get the vaccine, but they did start, they were to start this week, interviewing people and seeing if you qualify to get a vaccine. And if so, they were going to start, giving out some of those, 1,000 doses.
What are the qualification requirements?
Right now, it's men seeking sex with men, multiple partners. Okay. That's the primary
so they're
qualifiers.
So if you wanted this vaccine, you got to call them up and you got to say, well, I have sex with men and I have sex with a lot of men, so I want the vaccine.
That's basically, that's correct. So, that's
kind of embarrassing.
So, you've got to disclose to that, call the health department and,
oh man.
So, but if you're trying to get it to the ones that truly need it, I guess that's
what you got to do.
That's what you got to do. So.
Okay, my friend, we got anything else we want to talk about? I exhausted my list of questions I wanted to hit. I know you've had a lot of other issues in the state of South Carolina you've been fighting, and some of them I'm sure are similar in other states, not just.
Well, I was about to say, I don't know if I said this or not, but South Carolina has still got the marriage amendment of 2006 on its books that marriage is only between a man and a woman in the state of South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
We need to get that off our books just in case Obergefell is overthrown in the future,
Yeah.
and we don't go back to my marriage status is it depends. Are we talking about federal or state?
Yeah.
The other thing is, did you realize this though? I saw this number today. There are 32 states that if Obergefell is overthrown would revert back to banning marriage equality.
Phew.
That's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just hard to imagine that, it would take a couple of years. I think they've had to slow down because of the pushback on the Roe v. Wade and all that's been going on, all these demonstrations. But, still in 2 to 3 years, we could have 32 states where marriage equality has disappeared. I mean, that's just, I don't know, it's unimaginable to me. So that's why, I guess we got to get some new blood elected this November at our state level and see what we can do to correct it in the code of law.
Yeah.
That we don't have to worry about what Clarence Thomas may do in the future.
Yeah. So are you politically active here in this area?
By politically active, I vote every opportunity I get. Generally, pretty active with the city. If there's things that come up, I will show up at city council meetings. So,
What's does Grand Strand Pride have are you as an organization, do you actively lobby on these issues?
I guess I have to be careful because we are a 501c3 organization. So I can't technically lobby, but I can try to promote equality.
And you have alliances with other organizations, I'm sure, right?
We do. The biggest one right now, there's a group that's called South Carolina United.
Okay.
And they actually have boots on the ground in Columbia.
Oh.
And when things are coming up in committee or whatnot, and that we need to get word out to the community, they send word to all the alliance partners. And then we on social media say it's time to call your state representative or email your state representative. Here's the link. And
okay.
we need to squash this, and we've been pretty successful overall.
Good.
A few bills went on through this year, but overall, though, we've been pretty good at taking out some of the discriminatory things they're trying to do.
Okay. Well, that's good news. All right. Listen, Terry, it's been great talking to you, and I appreciate you joining us on Lean to the Left, and grateful that we'd be able to have this conversation. Hey guys, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this Lean to the Left video, and you'll come back on a regular basis and check out our interviews with guests on topics that I hope you find interesting, entertaining, and enlightening. Our audio interviews stream weekly on Mondays, and depending on what's going on, also on Thursdays. And many are also produced as videos like this one. In addition, we provide narrations of much of the commentary published on the Lean to the Left blog, commentary by some excellent writers with perspectives on a whole range of topics. Now you can sign up as a member at leantotheleft.net. And of course, it's all free. Also, let your friends know about this podcast and take a minute to subscribe. Just go to podcast.leantotheleft.net and you can subscribe there. You can also check out the upcoming interview schedule, and you can listen to all of our episodes too. You can also support this podcast by clicking on the Donate tab at the top of the page, where you'll find links to buy me a cup of coffee and also PayPal. Follow us on social media. Facebook at the Lean to the Left podcast, Twitter at Lean to the Left 1, Instagram @NotFakeNews. Now remember, our goal is to be informative and entertaining as we comment on the latest developments in the news. You guessed it, with just a little lean to the left. Now this is Bob Gaddy signing off for Lean to the Left. Thanks for sharing your time with us.